Sorry.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday morning, and welcome to our holiday. So we've done lots of holidays in Woodside Park. We've done big ones, we've done small ones, and today is going to be just another regular holiday, doing it together. Yes, we're apart, but we are still going to do it together. So I hope you all got my list of recipes and you got all your ingredients. So what I'm going to start doing is I've got in here, I'm actually going to take the recipe in front of me, and it's 2.5 cups of water, lukewarm water. And before I even start talking, I'm going to dissolve the yeast. And it's, I use 1 block. So I'm just going to break it in, and this is another half, and that's about 63 grams of fresh yeast. And yeast thrives, is live, right? Yeast is a live ingredient, and it thrives on sweetness. So really, and it expands. When do we see that the yeast is thriving? When it expands. Similar actually to all of us. When we thrive, we can expand in many ways. So this is like a big tablespoon of sugar. So I'm giving an opportunity to the yeast to really kind of get alive. And the way we're going to see that it gets alive is when it starts bubbling. So I'm going to put this aside now. And we are actually going to start with our dough. And then we'll be at the same time, we'll have it ready to add to the rest of the ingredients. So do you all have a bowl? Any bowl, any size bowl, but I quite like a biggish size, so you have space to knead. And any flour. So we're going to work with 1.5 kilos of flour. And as you know that I like to mix flour, so I've made already a dough this morning with a white flour, which I'm going to bring soon. So this morning I'm going to use mixed grain bread flour, but any strong flour will do. I also got, most people know the 60 that I've introduced you all to. But this is a new one that I haven't seen before. And I'm thinking, let's give it a try. But whatever flour you have, just open it up. Just empty the whole. It's a posh flour, and it's closed with a string, which is not opening with the gloves. The gloves really make it tricky. I might take them off soon. I have washed my hands under the gloves. I just thought an extra layer because we can't be too cautious these days. But if it means I can't open the flour, I might have to let go of the gloves. So by now you should all have been emptied your flour in the container. It is proving to be quite a struggle here. Most flours you can just open, but the posher flours come tied up with a string, and we are getting there. Okay, this is going to be memorable to this holiday that I could not get the flour open. I think I'm just going to make it clear. And we can definitely blame it on the glass. So this looks quite interesting. It looks a bit similar in texture to the 60. But I think that it's maybe a bit, the flour is a bit brown. So I'm using mixed grain bread flour. So I put the whole thing in my bowl, and I'm going to make a well, because in the well soon, I'm going to add my yeast. So the first thing I'm going to add, and I always, when I teach how to make challot, I always say, we're going to hide the salt, because the salt actually kills the yeast. But you need salt because you're not going to have any taste if you don't use salt. So what I do is I use 2 big tablespoons of salt, and I actually hide it kind of in the flour. I'm actually like playing games with my yeast. I'm not letting it know. I'm not letting my yeast know that the salt is there. Actually, if you think of your ingredients in the challah, they take on traits that we can recognize. If you think of the yeast expansion, you know, sometimes we're full of ideas, full of energy. What do we need to be careful coming just out of Pesach when we had the matzah, which is not quite the opposite. It's flat. So when we expand, we just need to be careful that our ego doesn't get into the way. So I've put the salt, and I've kind of mixed it in the side, so it's nowhere near the well. And And then I'm just going to add all my ingredients. So my next ingredient is sugar. You can again use caster sugar, regular sugar. I just use regular sugar. And the beauty with challah is very different to when you're baking a cake. Because when you bake a cake, you have to kind of stick to the ingredients. And when you make challah, bar the basic ingredients like your yeast and your flour and your water, you can play around with the taste. So if you can't have sugar, you can use any sweetener also, but you'll use much less. If you like it more salty, you can add more salt and less sugar. So in my house, they like it pretty sweet. So I'm going to actually add a cup of sugar, and I'm just going to kind of put it around it, and you don't need to mix it. So put my sugar in. So we've done my salt and we've done my sugar. I add 2 eggs. Again, some people don't put eggs in their challah. Some people put loads of egg in their challah. I put 2. And I use white eggs, as you know, because white eggs are much less likely to have black spots, and black spots are not kosher. And I'm also checking my egg in a clear glass, making sure there's no black spot, and I can use it. And I'm going to put this in the middle of my wine. So I have my flour around, it's like a crown, and it's open in the middle, and that's where I'm putting the liquids. So I'm putting my second egg in. And I'm just going to check it again to make sure that it doesn't have a black spot. And again, the white eggs are quite good. There's no black spots. So I'm going to put my eggs away and my yeast away. And then I'm going to add my oil. And it takes, you add 3/4 of a cup of oil. And you see, I've just used a glass. And I would just say stick to the same measuring glass, whatever size. This is just like a regular cup or glass. And I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of oil. I'm looking today, because today we use what we can get. And I'm using canola oil. You can use a vegetable oil. When I use oil and I add my oil to the challot, I think of olive oil. And olive oil is which we use to anoint kings. And next week, coming to the story of Shavuot, where we see Ruth. And she is actually the mother of our kingdom. She's the great-grandmother to King David. And so the significance of sugar, you want sweetness in your life, but not too much sweet because it can get bad for you. You need salt to kind of balance it off. Water, who can manage without water? Because water is the source of life, and our source of life is the Torah, which we're going to re-accept next week in the holiday of Shavuot. The yeast was the expansion. And if it's not good, if it doesn't, it's not going to be alive. And I'm looking at my yeast, and I'm going to show it to you. Because actually, can you see? I don't know if you can see the top, but it's starting to bubble. There you can see it. And that means that it's alive. So I can leave it a bit longer, but I'm actually, I'm going to leave this maybe for just another minute and share that basically we've used very basic ingredients to make the source of life, because bread is really the source of our food, the source of life. It's our sustenance. When we speak about food, we speak about bread on the table, and people that don't have bread, they do have bread. So this is a really important food. But now let me tell you, when the Torah speaks about challah, it actually doesn't speak about the challah that we have on our tables, because the challah is actually a part of the bread that we're going to soon separate. And we're going to take just a little piece of it when we do our blessing. And that's challah. And that's the mitzvah of challah in the Torah. I'm going to add the yeast. As you see that it started to bubble. Now you can leave it for a bit longer, but I just am conscious about time that we only have half an hour now. So I'm just going to add it in the well, as you see. And you see the yeast coming out. Lovely. So the yeast, and then I'm just going to go in and just kind of take all the remainders. So basically what I've done is I've just added all my ingredients. So I kind of have, still, you can still see the outlining. Emmanuel is standing behind it and making a face. But you know soon what this is going to become? The amazing challah. The whole house is going to smell brilliantly. Okay, so now I'm going to start mixing. I am going to tell you that it's tricky to mix with gloves. You can use a mixer. To me, there's something very special in making the challah. And actually, I'm going to knead it like a cake. So outside in, trying to get all the ingredients in. just very gently. And there's something about the kneading with my hands, getting really in touch with the flour and all the other ingredients. And it's actually a time for deep reflection. I try to have the kitchen quiet and peaceful and really connect to my act of making this bread. And I know this is going to give my family physical sustenance. I know this is going to make my Shabbos table really special when we make the blessing tonight and there's the homemade challahs. Then I take it a level deeper while I'm mixing. And I'm thinking of the sustenance that the world needs. You know, we need physical sustenance, we can't survive. But today the world is in need of so many things, if you think about it. And things we could pray for before when we did other holidays, because we always use this time to pray for our loved ones, for anybody that maybe is not well, for anybody that needs a bit of extra support. And I heard a beautiful idea last night. I was on a Zoom conference with some women, and one of the women shared, I'm not going to mention her name because I didn't ask her if I can share what she shared, but she shared that what happened, we went around the room, around the Zoom screen, and we spoke about how Corona has affected us. And she shared something that really stuck with me. And you see, I'm just kneading quite gently, and it's really developing in a dough. Now, the one practical thing that I do want to say is when you use any other flour to white flour, you might need to add, you know, sometimes it takes longer to absorb and it's a wetter dough, and you might need to add more flour. And often I will just add regular white strong flour to it, because anytime you use other flour, it has a different consistency. And actually my original recipe is created for when you use white flour. So I'm going to keep mixing, and while I'm mixing it, there's something very therapeutic about the exercise of having just a few ingredients you saw. I mean, nothing fancy. And it becomes this most amazing, it becomes this most amazing dough with brilliant texture. But it becomes something so great, something we make so many blessings of, not just the blessing of hamotzi, but the blessing for challah if we've taken enough dough, if we've used enough flour, which I'll mention soon. So she mentioned last night, she said how Corona affected her is that she was at a kotel just before lockdown. So this is a few weeks before Israel went into lockdown, before we did. And she said it was a very scary experience at the kotel because there was nobody there. And she said you felt like you were being shooed out of the country. She said at the airport also, she said it was a scary experience of Israel just wanting everybody to leave. And she said you could really feel it in the air. And she said, coming back to England, it was very strange, kind of an anticlimax, because we were still 2 weeks before the lockdown and everybody was going about their normal lives. And she said that parallel of difference, she said the time when it really sank, when she could really think about it, was the time when she started to light her Shabbos candles. And she said usually over the years when she lights her Shabbos candles, she thinks of all her loved ones, you know, her family and her children, you know, the child that needs a bit more success this week because he's having exams, the husband that needs support in his work, you know, she said her parents, her siblings. She said when she lit candles that Friday night when she came back, and ever since, so we're talking already quite a while, she said her prayers have expanded. And she said suddenly she found herself praying for everyone. She said the whole world is going through a situation which is the same. When have we lived through something that you can say every nook and cranny in the world is going through the same experience? We all experience it differently, obviously, but kind of the external life of what's happening to us is the same. And she said, as a result, her prayers have completely expanded. And she's praying for all the different countries and all the different people she knows and people she doesn't know. We have so many lists of people that need our prayers right now, all over the world. And she said, actually all the challenges of the corona, because it's bringing lots of challenges with it, lots of uncertainty and for some lots of anxiety. She said she feels this is actually a gift and something she really hopes she's going to treasure. And while we're making out the challah dough, actually the whole process of making our challah, it's not just at the time when we make the blessing that we pray. That's why we try and have a quiet space and using hands and not mix it, even though it becomes really, really messy as you see. And I would suggest maybe no gloves. And I am going to add no flour here. It's a process that can really take you to many spaces. And interesting, through the process of making bread, where it can leave us. And I don't know if you remember, but I shared with you all when I was on my gap year in Israel. I shared this at our first holiday. That on my gap year, they kind of encouraged us to go and spend Shabbat in different families, so you could experience different traditions, different foods, different, all different class of people, different areas in Israel. Some were very, very poor, and you could feel that by eating the challah, you were eating somebody's portion of food, and you always felt uncomfortable. But then you went to people that, you learn to realize that there's so many of us that make up who we are as the Jewish people. And I remember arriving actually to a very beautiful place in Jerusalem, and the girl, one of the children, opened the door and said, "My mom will greet you later," which was quite unusual. We came with a big bunch of flowers. She was, "My mom's home, but she can't see you right now. She's in the kitchen, and the kitchen is locked because she's making her bread." And we were like, "You see, I'm adding more flour because my dough is actually too wet because of the different flour that I'm using." Just a minute at a time. And we didn't make much of it, and we got to our bedrooms. We were young, we were 19, we were very self-absorbed. And at the Shabbat table, she said, "I'm so sorry, I'm so happy to meet you all," and took our names. And she said, "I'm sorry I wasn't available when you came, but I was in the kitchen, and this was my time that I speak to God." And I remember we were pinching each other under the table. I don't know if you remember me sharing this story. And we were thinking, "Oh my goodness, where did we arrive? Like, who is she?" And she went on to say, "I make sure that I have quiet time. My kitchen is clean. The phones are switched off. I've done everything for Shabbat. And the last thing I need to do is my challah." She said, "Through the power of making my challah, I connect to something way deeper in myself, like a state of meditation, maybe connection to Hashem. That is actually a very intense labor of connection, of prayer." And I remember thinking, my goodness, like it couldn't make her out, but I remember not feeling so comfortable because it was so alien. "What do you mean by making a bit of dough?" And she said, "And I use this time to pray for my children and to pray for anybody in the world that needs prayers." And she said, "That's why I didn't interrupt it, because that's my precious time." And I was in direct kind of dialogue. It was like an intense prayer in the synagogue when you won't disturb anyone. That was kind of how I envisioned her kitchen. Now, many years later, rather than giggle or pinch my friend under the table like, "Who is this loony?" I'm like, wow, she reached such levels of spirituality on Friday morning, despite everything going on around her and all the guests. We came over about 6 girls. And she managed to find this oasis of peace, an oasis of connection, an oasis of expansion. And I look back now and think, my goodness, we were in the presence of a real spiritual person. But we can all reach that. And you see, I've been kneading. My dough is kind of happening. It actually feels very, very nice. So you see, I've added quite a bit of flour. And it doesn't matter that I'm mixing the flours. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to, now the dough needs to rest. Because you see, I've punched it. And let me tell you, if you've had a week full of frustrations and you need to punch it out and really get whatever energies were in you, it just punch. You can really, 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 really punch. You can go two hands. You know, you can really connect through this physical activity to a deeper spiritual meaning. And it's a mitzvah. It's one of our 3 mitzvahs. So if you have a choice of what to make on a Friday morning, or you can't be bothered to make everything, always try and make challah, because challah is actually a mitzvah. You can buy cakes in the bakery. It's nice to have homemade cakes, but if you can't make cakes and challah, try and do the challah. Okay. So I'm going to let this rest now. You'll see all different, I'm sorry, but I am going to take my gloves off, and I have washed my hands before I put the gloves on. I think I should wash them again now. The suggestion is to actually put a drop of oil, really just a wee bit, on the top of your dough now, and just rub it in. Rub it in all the way. See, I'm just kind of smearing it. And then we cut out. Now, obviously, I don't do this every week. Most weeks, my dough is lucky to get a towel over it, but I'm just showing you the idea, the suggestion. And then they tell you to put a piece of cling film over it too. I'm just going to cover the top of my dough. So it has a bit of oil, and the cling film, the oil is make sure that the cling film doesn't stick to it. And then I'm going to cover it with a towel. Now, I had a question last week of somebody making challah, and she said, how long can I leave it for? You know, sometimes you need to run out or do some shopping. So especially that the weather today is not so warm, you have hours. I would say you have 3-4 hours. If it's going to be more than 4 hours, you most probably can leave it, but there's a risk that the dough might turn sour. I'd say if you know now that you're going out and you're only going to be back, say, in 5 hours, I would say put it in the fridge and then take it out when you come home and then let it sit for another hour. But we are coming back at 12, so we have about roughly an hour and a half. And there is no sun today, and I'm just thinking, I don't know how warm your kitchen is. If it's not so warm, what I suggest is you switch your oven on and you kind of let it sit. You let it sit here, so it can do its thing. Because what is its thing now? Now we want it to rise. Now we want it to expand, and hopefully when we come back in an hour and a half, it double its size. It might not, and that's fine too. We would like to see that it has definitely grown. If you see that it grows a lot before we come back, just remove the towel and punch it down. Just punch it down, and then put it back. And if it doesn't do anything, that's fine also. And when we come back at 12, I got another dough waiting. We're going to first take the blessing over the challah together. And don't worry if you've only used one bag, because I've used enough to make the bracha on it, and I'll explain a bit more later. And then we'll go into kneading. And if we have some time left, I've prepared the dough so I can show you how to quickly make a bracha. But if we don't have time, we'll leave this for another time. So off you go. See you soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them down or text me, and I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, I see you at 12 o'clock sharp.